Everyone talks and knows about most major laning concepts such as creep aggro and creep equilibrium to name a few, but there is one thing that 90% of Dota players either don't do, or if they do, is done entirely instinctively, and that thing is a prioritization system, or at least that's what I call it. If you start doing this, your laning will go from a 6x10 to a 9x10, and I'm not even exaggerating. This isn't just to win most of your lanes, this is also to not mess up in even or hard matchups. So what the fuck is a prioritization system? It's knowing what to prioritize in the laning phase between last hitting, denying, and harassing the enemy. This is something that not even really high MMR players do properly. In the laning phase, you have three things as mentioned before: last hitting, denying, and harassing the enemy. In terms of priority, last hitting comes first, followed by denying, and then harassing the enemy. In some cases, you would be better off hitting the enemy instead of trying to deny, which we will discuss at some point in this video. This concept is not limited to just the carry role, this is for all three core roles. For this video, I will mostly be using safe lane and mid examples. The concept is applied in the same way for every role, and after this video, you should have a decent idea of how and when to implement it on all three core roles. But before we get into the examples, you guys should know that this is much easier to implement on ranged heroes over melee heroes, especially heroes like Drow Ranger, who can keep right-clicking the enemy without drawing aggro off the creeps. For the first example, I will be using a replay of a 4 MMR Drow Ranger player. So we have discussed last hitting, denying, and harassing the enemy. So when these two waves meet, do you see anything that you can last hit or anything that you can deny? The answer is no. So in this case, what you should do is you should harass the Magnus. But what this player does is he stays AFK and does nothing. What he could do is he could walk up to these creeps and press frost arrows on this Magnus, and he won't even aggro the creeps. So essentially what he's doing at this moment, he's just AFK. This is not what you want to do. So if this Magnus was a good player, let's just say he wasn't a 4 MMR player, he was a better player, what he could do here is that he could aggro these creeps here, then here, and then he could just bring them back here, and you can't do anything about it. Why? Because this Drow Ranger is AFK. He's essentially not doing anything. Again, they look at this example. There's nothing to last hit, there's nothing to deny, but the Drow Ranger is not hitting the Magnus as much as she could. Like, she hit him once, but she could do it again and again, till this guy is out of position. When he's out of position, you can deny both of these creeps. If you keep doing this again and again, you will build up a lot of denies and a lot of lasses. This is what you don't want to do. This is a bad example. For the second example, I will be using a replay of a random 9k Immortal player. He's versus a Night Stalker. So when you see here is that there's nothing to last it or deny. So the priority is to hit the enemy. This is what he's doing. He's hitting the Night Stalker again and again. Now there's a deny. He's going to go for the deny. Right? He misses it, but the idea is here. Nothing to last it or deny again. Hit the Night Stalker. Right? Now there's a creep in last hit range, which is this one. So he's going to change his focus to right-clicking this creep now, which he does. Now there's something to deny, he's going to try to deny it. Now there's something to last hit, but not completely in range. So he's just going to wait. Because if he right-clicks the Night Stalker right now, he can deny this creep with 2 attacks. So he's not focused on that. Now again, he's going to focus on this last hit, which he does. And now right after this, what can he do? He can hit the Night Stalker again. Nothing to deny, nothing to last hit. Constantly click the Night Stalker. And now wait for this last hit, secure this last hit. Secure this deny. You see, this is how you want to play. This is how you want to prioritize the prioritization system. And then play off of that. Now we'll just fast forward real quick. See what he does when the situation is the same. Nothing to deny. Nothing to last it. What is he doing? Hitting the Jakiro again and again. Hit the Night Stalker. Go back to the lane. Focus on the denies and the last hit again. Nothing to deny. Nothing to last it. Hit the Night Stalker with the frost arrows again and again. Keep doing it. Keep doing it till you have something to deny or last it. So this is a good example. This is how you want to play. But this is like easy to do on Drow Ranger, so because you don't aggro creeps when you right click the enemy with your frost arrows. So now we're going to look at an example that isn't Drow Ranger but a ranged hero. The third example I'm going to be using is of Nightfall's Morphling. Morphling is a very different hero from Drow Ranger. He has a very short range, and if he right clicks the enemy, he's always going to aggro creeps. So this is how we want to see. Like, for example, now we see that there's nothing to deny or last it. Let's see what he does. So what he's doing here is not clicking the Mars at all. Why? Because if he clicks the Mars, he's going to aggro these creeps onto himself, and then this is a 2v1. They can go on him and he can lose a lot of HP. So in this case, he's not going to right click the enemy. The main idea is to only hit the enemy when you know you won't lose the trade. This is very important. So what you see here is that he's just chilling. You see, he's not doing anything, and then when the creep is low, he's just aggros, and now he's like focusing on denying and last hitting, because he knows that if he tries to hit the enemy, he's not only going to aggro creeps, but he's also going to take damage from the enemy. You see, that's exactly what happens. But this is like a very small move that would make a lot of difference, which people might miss. So I'm going to show you this again. So when he aggroes the creeps once, now the creeps are on a cooldown. He cannot aggro them again. So when he sees that Dawnbreaker is slightly out of position, he right-clicks the Dawnbreaker and does not aggro the creeps here. Right? This is one right-click, but it makes a bit of a difference if you think about it. And now he's going to go for deny, misses it, but back to square one. Just last hitting and denying. He's not clicking the enemy at all. So on Drow Ranger, it's brain dead because you don't aggro creeps, but on different range heroes, it's very different. You need to kind of like identify that, can I even right-click the enemy here? So now he's focused on last hitting again. Again, focus on last hit. But there's going to be an example where you're going to see he's going to right-click the enemy a lot. And it's going to happen. Very soon it's going to happen. It's just about whether the trade is good enough for you or not. So what you see here is he's going to go for the pull. It's fine. Everything's fine. But this is where things are going to get interesting, right? You see here that he has 4 creeps and the Mars has 2. So if Morphling forces a trade with the Mars here, the Mars will lose the trade. Why? Because Morphling has more creeps. So he secures this creep and then he instantly goes on the Mars and right-clicks him. Why? Because he knows he's going to win this trade because he has more creeps than the Mars does. And because of that, the Mars is like suddenly low HP. So these are like small trades that you have to do really well in such matchups, right? So this is another example of when you can't exactly be brain dead and right-click the enemy. How do you actually harass them? So the thing to focus about here is that when you right-click the enemy, you need to really focus and worry about the aggro. If you aggro the creeps, you might push in the lane indirectly because of what happens. And also that you don't want to take a lot of damage from the creeps. So on Drow Ranger, you can right-click the enemy and not aggro creeps, but on every other hero, you will aggro creeps. So you have to be careful about that. The fourth example I'm going to be using is of a melee hero, which is very different from a range hero, of course. The pathway is very simple. Drow Ranger can right-click heroes without aggroing creeps. A ranged hero can right-click heroes, but he still will aggro some of the creeps. But a melee hero, he's going to aggro creeps and always take damage because he's a melee hero. So how do you right-click the enemy as a melee hero is what we're going to see here. So as you can see, he's just focused on getting creeps and whatever. So he has not clicked a single hero right now. There's nothing to last hit, nothing to deny. He can probably go and right-click the enemy, but he does not do it. Why? Because he knows that if he tries to do it, he's going to get cooked for it. So he's completely focused on last hitting. This basically tells you that as a melee hero, you need to focus on last hitting the most and not take free damage when you aggro creeps because you try to hit the enemy. Like, up till now, it's been like 30 seconds in the lane. Yatoro has not hit a single hero so far. He's just focused on last hitting. Here, he could do it. Here, he could potentially do it, but he has to make a choice. He can either go on this guy, who's going to press this and this, and he might take some damage, but he could probably have a better trade, but then he's going to miss this creep. So let's see what he does. So he goes back to the creep and ignores this doom entirely. I'm not sure if that was the correct decision, but I guess he's more focused on having a good lane in the early phase rather than risking something. Again, so far, 0 clicks on the enemy. 0 clicks, right? So this basically tells you that on melee hero, it's really hard. It's very hard to do that. The last safe lane example I'm going to be using is of Satanic's Dragon Knight. He's versus a Dawnbreaker, so not exactly a really good matchup. So what happens here is that you're going to see that he does not click the Dawnbreaker for obvious reasons, because if he does, he has to aggro the creeps backwards, right? If he goes forward, the creeps are going to aggro on him and the Dawnbreaker can cook him. So in such matchups, you kind of play on the back foot and try to harass the enemy with your spell. So what you're going to see here is that he's going to right-click the range creep and secure it while doing damage to the Dawnbreaker here. Now he's like focusing on the denies, and as soon as he sees that Dawnbreaker has wasted his spell, this is where he's going to start hitting the Dawnbreaker. Like you see, constantly right-clicking him. Why? Because he understands that Dawnbreaker does not have that advantage that he would with his spell. So he's completely ignoring the wave because he knows there's nothing to last hit, nothing to deny. So what he's doing is like constantly right-clicking the Dawnbreaker. And now that he knows that this is going to be back very soon, he's playing passively again. And now again, when he sees that Dawnbreaker has wasted his Q and he's level 2, this is where he can pressure the Dawnbreaker again. So the thing that we learn from here is that don't mindlessly hit the enemy, because sometimes, not sometimes, almost always you're going to lose the trade. Another example that I can give you is, let's say you're playing Dragon Knight versus Timbersaw. So if you right-click a Timbersaw as Dragon Knight, what is going to happen? He's going to press Whirling Death and you're going to lose the trade, right? But if somehow you bait this spell out and it doesn't hit you, and for the next 7 seconds he does not have there, this is when you can actually hit him. So suddenly the bad matchup turns into a good matchup. So before that, what do? You just keep aggroing the creeps towards yourself and keep farming till you get this opportunity. like you see in this replay. So this is very important to understand. This is what I mean, that sometimes you're going to have even or hard matchups. You could say this is an even matchup, but a normal player would very easily fuck this up by just right-clicking the enemy because he watched PainDota's video on just right-clicking the enemy with the prioritization system, but that's not how it goes. In some cases, you will end up hurting yourself because of this system. So you have to make sure that this does not happen. The next example I'm going to be using is of the mid lane, Malrine's Magnus versus Odie. So you can guess what's going to happen. Do you think the Magnus can actually ever right-click the OD? Probably not. So let's see what he does, because this is like a melee versus ranged matchup. So you see like he's just like standing back. He's not hitting the OD, but Odie is doing the same thing. Nothing to last or deny. He clicks the Magnus because he can do that. He's a ranged hero. But this guy's just chilling. He's not going to right-click the OD a single time. Goes for deny. Now back. Nothing to last or deny. So he's just going to chill. Now he secures the creeps with his Q, does damage to the OD, and that's fine. Right? Now again, nothing to last or deny. What is Magnus going to do? Just play for the deny, because he cannot right-click the OD at all. And now the OD is hitting the Magnus again and again. Why? Because he has nothing to last it or deny. This priority system is the same in every lane. For the off lane, for the mid lane, is the same exact thing. Now you see that this Magnus hasn't clicked the OD a single time, because he understands that it's absolutely useless to do that. You're just going to lose HP. So this is quote unquote a bad matchup for Magnus, right? Because it's a range versus melee, and the range hero is an OD. So this Magnus should lose this lane. So now a normal Magnus player would try to right-click the OD instead of focusing on the creeps, and he would probably lose this matchup. But if, let's say, we go further ahead, look at the last hits. This Magnus is at 23 last hits, and this OD is at 14. How does that happen, right? Think about it. How does that happen? It happens, why? Because this guy does not waste his time trying to right-click the OD, but only does damage to him with his Q. For our next example, let's see the opposite, right? Now Malrine is on the ranged hero, and he's versus a melee hero. So what you see here is that he wants to right-click this Tiny, but Tiny knows that, right? Nothing to deny, nothing to last it. What is the ranged hero going to do? Hit the Tiny. So the Tiny is staying behind because he does not want that to happen. And now what's going to happen is he's only going to step forward when there's something that he could deny or last it. So now you see that Malrine is not even trying to right-click him because he's focused on the denies. And he got one, which is a really big deal. Now he's going to push in the wave, probably get level 2 here. And once that happens, nothing to deny or last it. Hit the Tiny once. And then wait for him to be out of position. Hit him again, nothing to last it or deny. And then here, focus on the creep. And then hit him because there was nothing to deny or last it. Now there's a last hit, get the last hit. And now focus on the last hit, but before he clicks the Tiny again. And now he secures the creep, now he's going to keep hitting the Tiny. So, do you see the difference? This whole thing is entirely based off of what type of matchup you're in. What type of hero you're playing, whether it is good for you or not. So this thing is really important to understand. Based on the examples we've gone over, if you notice a pattern, harassing the enemy is entirely related to whether it is a favorable trade for you or not. We've seen brain-dead examples of a hero like Drow Ranger, slightly harder to execute examples of ranged heroes versus melee heroes, and almost no right-clicking execution on melee heroes. This thing is really important to understand because this is how you will really stomp lanes. And in Dota, if you win the lane, you already have a higher chance of winning than the enemy. This will help you get more denies in the lane, zone out the enemy, and play hard lanes in a way where you can at least make it even or don't get stomped. I will now explain how to do this step by step, but before that, I'm running a New Year sale on all of my coaching packages, and the sale will end on 10th of January with very few slots left. If you're interested, check out my website at PainDota.com. Step number 1, determine what kind of lane you are in. This is very important because the prioritization system is different for the type of matchup you are in, as discussed before. If you're a hero like a Drow Ranger versus a melee hero, you play aggressive. If you're a ranged hero versus a melee hero, you can play aggressively, but be careful about aggroing too many creeps on yourself. And if you're a melee hero, try not to hit the enemy as much as you would on other heroes because you don't want to aggro the creeps, which results in the lane getting pushed into the enemy and you losing HP as well because you will tank creeps. Ranged heroes don't have this issue because of, well, their range. Step number 2, once you've determined what type of matchup you are in, now all you have to do is keep the prioritization system in mind. By now, I probably sound like a broken record, but it's essential to constantly repeat this so you don't forget about it. Last hits first, followed by denies, and then hitting the enemy. These are your clicks in the lane and you need to be really careful about them. For example, let's say there's a creep that is around 30% HP and you right-click the enemy. Now, since you have a backswing or attack animation cooldown, you cannot right-click in time to secure the last or deny, and the enemy enemy might even get a free deny because of this. This is a very common issue and will happen to you, so be mindful of your clicks in the lane. Don't waste them. I discussed earlier in the video that there will be some situations where you would want to hit the enemy rather than trying to deny a creep. This is when you are confident that you cannot deny the creep even if you try. For example, if you're a ranged hero versus a melee hero, the melee hero will always almost have more attack damage than you will, and he won't have a projectile while you would. So in such cases, denying is impossible, so it's better to hit the enemy instead. This is all you have to do and your laning will become insanely better. If you wish to significantly improve as a player, I offer coaching packages that will significantly improve your MMR as they have for other students. I'm running a New Year sale on all of my coaching packages, and the sale will end on 10th of January with very few slots left. If you're interested, check out my website at PainDota.com or join my Discord linked in the description. Other than that, I want to tell you about Dota Academy, a private community I started with 2 other coaches who are 13k and 12k respectively. In the academy, there are 4 classes per week on every role where we teach every role from scratch. This topic that I just discussed has already been discussed in the Dota Academy, and all of the previous classes are recorded and available to watch inside the academy. Not only that, if you gain the highest amount of MMR at the end of the month out of all the students, you can avail a free coaching session of your choice from any of the coaches. If you want to join Dota Academy, click on the link in the description. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to subscribe and like the video for more high quality content like this.